Girls, who said you were right all along. How did you react when he did not forgive you? Story 1. When Maya dumped me, she left a list on my kitchen table like a performance review. Too cautious, too boring, always thinking worst case. She moved in with a guy who lived loud. I kept my head down, finished my apprenticeship, and stopped checking her socials after a week because it felt like licking a battery. 2 years later, I got a message request at 2:13 a.m. from a number I didn't have saved. You were right all along. I stared at it, waiting for the punchline. She called the next day. Her voice was thin, like she'd been sleeping in a chair. I should have listened. He cleaned out my account. He had other girls. You warned me. I did warn her. I also remember her laughing and saying, "You think everyone's out to get you?" She asked to meet. I agreed. Public place, daytime, 10 minutes. She showed up with swollen eyes and a folder like evidence. She kept repeating, "You were right," like it was supposed to unlock a door. "I'm not calling to get back together," she said fast. I need forgiveness. I can't breathe without it. That's when I realized it wasn't about me. It was about her needing the universe to tell her she wasn't stupid. I said calmly, "I'm sorry you're going through that. I hope you're safe." Her face brightened, like I'd started writing the happy ending. Then I added, "But I don't forgive you." The smile fell off her like a mask. "What?" But I admitted it. I literally said you were right. "Being right didn't protect me," I said. "You didn't just leave. You made me feel small for caring." Her hands shook around the coffee cup. "So you're punishing me?" "No," I replied. "I'm choosing not to reopen a door you slammed with a laugh." She started crying right there in the cafe, loud enough that 2 people looked over. "You're the only good thing I ever had." I stood up, put a few bills down and said, "Then learn to keep good things." I walked out and blocked her number before I reached my car. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel too cautious. I felt free. Story 2. I met Chloe in college, the kind of girl who called everything a vibe. I was the guy who carried an umbrella and a phone charger. When she started texting an older coworker, I said, "He's love-bombing you. This isn't real." She rolled her eyes and told me I had trust issues. She dumped me over FaceTime. I need someone who doesn't panic about everything. 6 months later, she showed up at my work. Not a text, not a call, just her, standing in the lobby, clutching her bag like a life raft. She looked smaller. "I was wrong," she blurted before I could speak. "You were right all along. He was married." I felt my stomach tighten. Not because I missed her, but because I'd pictured this moment 100 times. In my fantasy, she apologized and I felt healed. In real life, she smelled like the same perfume and old disappointment. She followed me outside and talked fast. "I didn't know. He told me he was separated. I ignored every red flag you pointed out. I was cruel to you." I nodded. "Okay." Her eyes widened. "Okay. Like, you forgive me?" I said, "Okay," I repeated. "I heard you." She blinked, confused, like I'd answered in the wrong language. "I came here because I can't sleep. I keep hearing your voice telling me, I need you to say you forgive me." And that's when the anger finally arrived. Quiet, controlled, late to the party like always. "No," I said. "You don't need my forgiveness. You need to forgive yourself for ignoring your own gut." Her face tightened. "So you're just going to be cold?" "I'm not cold," I replied. "I'm done." She stepped closer. "I said you were right. Isn't that what you wanted?" I laughed once, sharp. "What I wanted was respect. Back then. When it mattered, she started to argue, then stopped. Like she realized she didn't have a script for this version of me. Tears gathered, but I didn't rush to fix it. "That used to be my job. I quit." She whispered, "I can't believe you won't forgive me." I looked at the street, the cars, the normal life moving on. "I can. Because I finally know what I'm worth." She stood there a moment longer, waiting for me to crack. I didn't. She walked away, and for once I didn't chase. Story 3. In high school, I dated Lena, the girl everyone loved because she was funny and fearless. I was the safe boyfriend. When her new friend group started doing pills at parties, I told her, "This is going to end badly." She called me dramatic, told me I was trying to control her, and dumped me in front of everyone at a bonfire. I spent years carrying that humiliation like a bruise you keep pressing to check if it still hurts. After graduation, after a couple jobs, after life softened the edges, I got a Facebook message from her. "You were right all along." I didn't respond. I just stared at the words until they blurred. A week later, she messaged again. "Can we talk, please?" Just once. Curiosity is a stupid animal, so I agreed. We met at a park in daylight, sitting on opposite ends of a bench like strangers. She looked older in a way I recognized, eyes that had seen consequences. "I'm sober," she said quickly. "A year." "Good," I said, and meant it. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. "I lost so much. I lost my scholarship. I lost friends. I lost myself. She swallowed hard. You tried to warn me. And I made you the villain. I stayed quiet. I could feel the old part of me rising, eager to say the perfect thing, to be the good guy again. Then she said, I need you to forgive me. I can't move on without it. There it was. Not an apology. A request. A transaction. I looked at her hands. She'd picked her nails down to nothing. Lena, I said softly, I'm proud of you for getting help. Her face lit up for half a second. But I'm not the finishing line for your recovery, I continued. My forgiveness isn't a sobriety chip. Her expression cracked. I'm not trying to use you. You are, I said, still calm. You want me to rewrite the past so you don't have to sit with what you did. Tears spilled. I was 16. And I was 16 too, I replied. And I still remember being laughed at while I stood there with a soda in my hand. She covered her face. So, you hate me. I didn't. That was the weird part. I felt nothing sharp, just distance. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't forgive you either. Not because you don't deserve healing, because I deserve peace. She nodded like she understood, even though it hurt. When she left, she didn't look back. That night, I slept like someone had finally returned my lungs. Story 4. Sasha was my first adult relationship. We lived together, split rent, argued about dish soap like it was a moral issue. When she started hanging out with her new gym friend, I said, He's flirting with you. She laughed. You're paranoid. You're insecure. You always make things bigger than they are. Then she cheated. And when I found out, she acted offended that I was hurt. We were drifting anyway. I moved out with 2 trash bags and my dignity taped back together. A year later, she emailed me because I'd blocked everything else. The subject line. You were right. I almost deleted it. Instead, I read. She wrote about how the gym guy had filmed her during sex without asking. How he'd threatened to send it when she tried to leave. How she'd finally gotten help and was safe. She ended with, I mocked you for warning me. You were right all along. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. My hands went cold. I felt a wave of sympathy, then anger behind it like a shadow. I replied, I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm glad you're safe. If you need resources, I can send them. I'm not comfortable reconnecting. She called anyway, unknown number. I shouldn't have answered. I did. She didn't say hello. She said, So you're not forgiving me? I said, I'm glad you're safe, I replied. That's not what I asked, she snapped, voice wet. I admitted you were right. I apologized. What more do you want? The entitlement hit me like a slap. Like she still thought my feelings were an inconvenience she could negotiate. I want you to stop making your healing my responsibility, I said. Silence. Then, you're being cruel. No, I answered. Cruel was you calling me insecure while you lied to my face. She started crying harder. I lost everything. I need you, and I realized this is how she'd always lived. Falling, grabbing the nearest person, calling it love. I'm not your life raft, I said quietly. I can wish you well and still not let you back into my life, she whispered. So that's it? That's it. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from guilt, from relief. I'd finally chosen myself, even when it made me the villain in her story. Story 5. I dated Erin for 3 years. I was the planner. She was the dreamer. When she started talking about quitting her job and moving across the country with a guy she'd known for 2 months, I said, This is reckless. At least slow down. She accused me of not believing in her and told me love shouldn't feel like a spreadsheet. She left anyway, posted photos like her life was a movie. I stopped existing. 2 years later, I got a long message. You were right all along. He lied about everything. I'm back home. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I stared at my phone for a long time. The old me wanted to respond instantly, to be kind, to prove I wasn't the bitter ex. But I remembered the nights I couldn't sleep because I kept replaying her last words. You'll never be enough for anyone who wants more. I replied, I'm sorry it turned out like that. I hope you're okay. She answered in seconds. Can we meet? I need to apologize properly. I need you to forgive me. We met at a bookstore cafe. She looked like she'd aged 5 years. She held my gaze like it was an anchor. I'm ashamed, she said. You tried to protect me. You were right. I nodded. I know. She flinched at how plain I sounded. I'm not trying to get back together, she said quickly, then added, unless you wanted to? There it was. The real reason. I don't, I said. Her face hardened. So you're going to punish me forever? I'm not punishing you, I replied. I'm protecting myself. She leaned forward, desperate. But I came back and told you the truth. Doesn't that count for something? It counts, I said. It means you've grown enough to admit it. Hope flickered in her eyes. And it still doesn't erase what you did, I continued. I rebuilt my life without you. I don't want you in it. She stared at me like I'd spoken an impossible sentence. You're really not going to forgive me. I took a breath. Aaron, forgiveness isn't a vending machine. You don't put in, I was wrong and get a clean conscience out. She went silent, tears sliding down anyway. People looked. The old me would have rushed to comfort her, to make it less embarrassing. Instead, I stood, picked up my book and said, I truly hope you find peace. Just not through me. I walked out, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the planner. I felt like the person who finally planned for himself. Story 6. Jules used to call me Captain Caution. If I didn't like a new friend of hers, I was jealous. If I asked where she'd been, I was controlling. The night she left, she stood in my doorway and said, You always think people are bad. Maybe you're the bad one. 3 months later, she texted, You were right all along. No hello. No how are you. Just that. She'd moved in with a roommate who turned out to be running business out of their apartment. Police raid. Jules handcuffed, crying, swearing she didn't know. She wanted me to help explain to her parents. She wanted me to say she wasn't stupid. She wanted my voice to clean up her mess. We met in the parking lot of a grocery store. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I should have listened. You were right about them. I was arrogant. I nodded. Yeah. Her eyes searched my face. So, you forgive me? That word. Like a key she'd decided I was obligated to hand over. I'm glad you're okay, I said. But no. I don't forgive you. Her mouth opened, then shut. Why would you say that after everything I'm going through? Because when I was going through it, I replied. You made me feel crazy for caring. She scoffed, wiping tears like they offended her. So you're making this about you. It's always been about you, I said. Even now. She stared at me, stunned. I came here to be honest. You came here to be rescued, I corrected. She started shaking, angry now. You know what? Fine. Stay bitter. I just thought you'd be better than this. I smiled, small and tired. I am better than this. That's why I'm leaving. I turned and walked away while she shouted my name like I'd dropped something. I didn't look back. She'd already taught me what happens when I do. Story 7. Nora and I dated through my broke era. Ramen dinners, thrift store dates, me refusing her investment opportunities because they sounded shady. She hated that. You're scared of success, she'd say. You always think it's a scam. When she left, she posted a smug caption, manifesting the life I deserve. A year later, she emailed me at my work account. You were right all along. Please don't hate me. She'd gotten pulled into an MLM that started wellness and ended with debt. She'd maxed out her cards buying product, then her upline vanished. Her parents were furious. She was embarrassed, and now she wanted me to be the soft place she could land. We met at a diner. She slid into the booth and immediately started crying. I treated you like you were holding me back. You weren't. You were protecting me. I sipped my coffee. I tried. She grabbed my hand across the table like we were still us. Say you forgive me. I need to hear it. I gently pulled my hand away. That tiny movement hit her harder than any insult. I don't, I said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Her face snapped up. But I apologized. You apologize because you're broke, I said. Not cruel, just honest. Where was this humility when you called me pathetic for working overtime? She flinched like I'd slapped her. I'm not your safety net, I continued. I built myself up without you cheering. I'm not rebuilding your self-esteem now, she whispered. So you're leaving me when I'm at my lowest. I leaned back. You left me when I was at mine, Nora. You just didn't call it that. She stared at her hands for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. I really did love you. I nodded once. Then you'll let me go. She didn't argue after that. She just sat there, swallowing her own consequences, while I paid my bill and walked out into the sunlight like someone stepping out of a dark room. Story 8. I dated Kim for 6 months. It was intense, fast, all late-night talks and future plans. Then she met a musician at a bar and decided I was safe, in the worst way. You're a good guy, she said like it was an apology. But I need passion, I told her. He's using you. He's flirting with everyone. She smirked. You're just mad it's not you. A year later, she showed up at my sister's engagement party. I didn't invite her. My sister didn't invite her. She just appeared. Like she still had access to my life. She cornered me near the dessert table. You were right all along, she whispered. He had 3 girlfriends. I stared at her, feeling the whole room blur behind her. Why are you here? Her eyes filled. Because you're the only person who saw me. I messed up. I want to apologize. I want you to forgive me at my sister's party. With my family 10 feet away. Like my boundaries were a suggestion. I'm not doing this here, I said low. She grabbed my sleeve. Please. I'm embarrassed. I feel stupid. Say you forgive me so I can breathe. I slowly peeled her fingers off my arm. Kim, you don't get to crash my life and demand comfort. Her face twisted. I'm not demanding. You are, I cut in. And you're doing it in front of my family, so I won't say no. Her cheeks went red. People started glancing over. I leaned in so only she could hear. I don't forgive you. And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling someone to escort you out. Her mouth fell open. You wouldn't. I nodded toward my brother-in-law and two friends. Try me. She backed up like the floor shifted. For a second, she looked like she might scream. Then she snapped, You're disgusting. You love punishing women. I smiled, calm as glass. No. I love protecting my peace. She spun and stormed out. My sister walked up a minute later and asked, Was that? I kissed her forehead and said, Don't worry. She's not my problem anymore. Story 9. Tessa and I were childhood friends before we dated. That's why it hurt so much when she turned our breakup into a group project. She told everyone I was emotionally unsafe because I didn't trust her new mentor, a 30-year-old guy who bought her gifts and called her mature. I said, He's grooming you. She laughed in my face. Stop sexualizing everything, you creep. The words stuck to me for years. Then, out of nowhere, a letter arrived at my apartment. An actual handwritten letter. It started, You were right all along. She wrote about how he'd isolated her, controlled her money, monitored her phone. She wrote she'd finally left. She wrote she was in therapy. And at the end, Please forgive me. I can't live with what I said to you. I sat on my couch holding that paper like it weighed 10 pounds. I texted her, I'm glad you're safe. I'm sorry that happened. She replied instantly, Can we meet? I need to hear you forgive me. We met in a quiet park. She looked fragile, like a bird that had hit a window. I'm sorry, she said, voice shaking. I destroyed your name. I made you the villain so I could stay with him without guilt. I felt my throat tighten. Yeah, she started crying. Say it. Please. Say you forgive me. And I realized something cruelly simple. If I said it, she'd feel lighter. If I said it, I'd carry the rest. I can't, I said. Her eyes went wide. But you know I was manipulated. I do, I said softly. And I still had to live in a town where people looked at me like I was dangerous. She covered her mouth. I didn't think... I know, I replied. That's the problem. She reached out like she wanted to touch my arm, then stopped. So what do? You keep healing, I said. But you don't use me as your permission slip. She nodded, tears falling quietly. No yelling, no scene. Just the sound of consequences finally landing. When she left, I sat there a long time. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean, like a stain had finally stopped spreading. Story 10. I used to think love meant staying calm while someone else burned. That's how it was with Bree. She'd explode, I'd apologize even when I hadn't done anything. The last fight, she screamed, You're always right, okay? You think you're so smart? One day you'll realize you ruined us. She left, and I spent months wondering if she was right. Then she came back, 1 year later, outside my new apartment building. I was carrying groceries. She stood by the gate like she'd been waiting for a bus. You were right all along, she said immediately. I get it now. I froze. How do you know where I live? She ignored the question. My therapist says I sabotage. I blamed you for everything. You didn't deserve it. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to hug her. Another part remembered shaking hands, sleepless nights, the feeling of walking on glass. She stepped closer. Please forgive me. I set the grocery bags down carefully. Bree, I'm glad you're getting help. Her eyes shone. So you forgive me? No, I said. Her face changed like a switch flipped. What? I don't forgive you, I repeated, because forgiveness doesn't fix the fact that you tracked me down after I moved. Her lips trembled. I just needed closure. That's not closure, I said. That's control wearing a therapy mask. She stared, breathing fast. You're really going to throw away everything because I made mistakes? I nodded. Yes, because my life got better the moment you left. For a second, I thought she might scream. Instead, she laughed, sharp and ugly. Wow, you really are cruel. I picked up my bags and buzzed the door. No, I said as it opened. I'm finally done being easy to hurt. The door clicked shut between us, and her voice muffled on the other side, still trying to get the last word. She didn't. Story 11. Mina and I were that calm couple everyone compared themselves to, until she got into a new friend group that lived for drama and soft-launching new guys online. I told her the guy she kept just grabbing coffee with was clearly auditioning to replace me. She laughed and said, You're paranoid. You always assume the worst. Then I found the messages. Not even hidden. She'd gotten sloppy. When I confronted her, she didn't cry. She rolled her eyes and said, You were right, okay? Happy? You were right. She moved out that weekend. 8 months later, she showed up at my gym. Not the one near her place. Mine. She'd had to look for it. She waited until I finished a set. then stepped into my path like we were in a movie. You were right all along, she said, voice shaky. He cheated on me too. I lost friends. I lost everything. I wiped my hands and said, okay. Her eyes searched my face for warmth. I'm not asking to get back together. I need you to forgive me. I can't stop thinking about how I treated you. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. She still thought I was a service she could request. I don't forgive you, I said. Her mouth fell open. What do you mean you don't? I mean, I'm sorry you're hurting, I replied. But you didn't just hurt me. You rewrote reality and called me crazy for noticing. She blinked hard. I admitted it now. That should count. It counts for you, I said. It doesn't erase what it cost me. Her voice rose. So you're just going to punish me forever? I leaned closer, calm. This isn't punishment. This is a boundary. Her face twisted, and she did what she always did when she couldn't win. She performed. Tears. Shaky breath. I'm trying to be better. Then respect my no, I said. She stood there like she'd been slapped, then hissed, You're not as nice as you pretend to be. I nodded once. I'm not pretending anymore. I walked away, and for the first time the gym felt like my space again. Story 12. I dated Cassie through her finding herself phase. New jobs, new hobbies, new circles. I supported everything until the day she announced she was moving in with a guy from her yoga studio. I told her, This is moving too fast. He gives me bad vibes. She sighed like I was exhausting. You're right about everything, aren't you? That's your problem. You think being right makes you good. She left with a suitcase and a smirk. A year later, she emailed me a photo of a bruise on her arm. No greeting. Just the bruise and, You were right all along. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. My stomach flipped. I called her immediately and asked if she was safe. She was at her sister's. Police report filed. She sounded hollow. I didn't deserve you, she whispered. I was cruel to you. I swallowed. I'm glad you got out. She started crying. Can you please forgive me? I can't live with what I did. I wanted to say yes just to stop her pain. But my chest remembered the nights she made me feel like my concern was a disease. Cassie, I said softly, I can support you as a human being. Her breath caught. So, you forgive me? No, I said. Not like that. Silence. Then a small, angry laugh. Wow, after everything he did, you're still making this about you. I'm making it about truth, I replied. You're safe now, but you're trying to use my forgiveness as a bandage. She whispered, I just want to be okay. Then stay in therapy, I said. Lean on your sister. Build a new life. But don't ask me to erase my pain so you can sleep. She cried harder. I didn't hang up. I stayed on the line long enough to make sure she wasn't alone. Then I said goodbye. Afterward, I felt sick, and also strangely proud. I'd finally learned the difference between compassion and surrender. Story 13. Addie was the kind of girlfriend who turned every argument into a courtroom. She'd cross-examine my tone, my pauses, my breathing. When I told her I didn't like her work husband, who kept sending her late-night memes, she said, You're right. You're always right. Congratulations. Then she posted a TikTok about insecure men without naming me, but everyone knew. We broke up, and I vanished from her life. 3 months later, she messaged, You were right all along. He tried to kiss me at the office party. I feel disgusting. Please forgive me for making you the villain. I stared at my phone like it was a trap. She called. I didn't answer. She called again. I answered the third time because I'm apparently allergic to peace. Her voice was frantic. I hate that you were right. I hate that I did this to us. I was so mean to you. I listened. I didn't interrupt. When she finally paused, she said, So, do you forgive me? I forgive you for being wrong, I said. I don't forgive you for humiliating me publicly. Her breath caught, but I apologized. You apologized privately, I replied. You shamed me publicly. She went quiet, then said, I can delete it. It's been watched, I said. Shared. Saved. Her tone sharpened. So you want me to grovel forever? No, I said. I want you to learn that sorry doesn't reverse time. She started crying. I thought you'd be relieved. I'm not relieved, I said. I'm tired. She whispered. So that's it. You're just done. Yeah, I said. And for the first time, I'm right about that too. I hung up and blocked her before she could turn it into another trial where my boundaries were the defendant. Story 14. Rena used to tease me for overthinking. If I asked questions, I was negative. If I needed reassurance, I was needy. The day she left, she said, You're right about everything and it's exhausting. I want someone who lets life happen. She let life happen with a guy who sold her on a startup dream. He convinced her to put her name on paperwork, just for the lease. When it blew up, the debt landed on her. She found my number somehow and called sobbing. You were right all along. I should have listened. I ruined my life. My heart went out to her. Then I remembered her laughing at me when I begged her to slow down. I'm sorry, I said. That's terrifying. She inhaled sharply. So you forgive me? I closed my eyes. Rena, no. Her sob turned into a choking silence. How can you say no when I'm like this? Because this isn't about your debt, I replied. It's about you wanting me to tell you you're still a good person. I am a good person, she snapped, suddenly angry. Maybe, I said. But you weren't good to me. She started talking faster. I was stressed. I was young. I didn't mean it. Stop, I said, firm. I believe you didn't mean to. I also believe you did it. She went quiet. I hope you find a way out, I continued. Get legal advice. Get support. But don't ask me to clean up the emotional damage you left behind. Her voice turned small. So you're abandoning me. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm staying gone. She hung up without goodbye. My hands shook afterward, but the shake faded. The peace didn't. Story 15. Sophie was my soulmate until she decided my stability was boring. She started chasing a guy who did motorcycles and bar fights. I said, he's dangerous. Please don't. She kissed my cheek and said, you were right all along about everything in life. That's why you'll never be happy. That line lived in my head like a parasite. 2 years later, she messaged me a voice note. Her voice was hoarse. Hey, you were right. He hit me. I left. I'm at my mom's. A pause. I'm sorry for what I said to you. Can you forgive me? I didn't respond for a day. I kept replaying it. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I could feel my old savior reflex waking up. I finally called. Are you safe? Yes, she whispered. Good, I said. I'm glad you left, she sniffed. So, do you forgive me? And there it was again. The test. The demand. Sophie, I said gently, I can be relieved you're safe and still not forgive you. She sucked in a breath. Why? Because you didn't just insult me, I replied. You tried to curse my future. You said I'd never be happy. Her voice cracked. I was hurting. I know, I said, and you aimed it at me. She started crying. I hate myself. I need you to tell me I'm not a monster. I took a long breath. I can't be that person for you. Not anymore. She went silent, then whispered, so you really moved on? Yes, I said, and I hope you do too, without trying to pull me back into the wreckage. When we hung up, I sat in my quiet apartment and realized something. I wasn't cold. I was healed enough to stop bleeding for someone who never learned how to hold me carefully. Story 16. I met Paige at a volunteer event. She loved how grounded I was, until grounded started sounding like slow. When she got offered a job in another city, I suggested we plan it. Budget, timeline, visits, maybe a move together if it made sense. She snapped, you always need a plan. You're right about everything and it's suffocating. She took the job anyway, and took my best friend's number with her. I didn't find out from her. I found out from a mutual who sent me a screenshot of her soft launch photo. Paige's hand on my friend's chest. Captioned, sometimes you just know. 3 months later, she wrote, you were right all along. He lied to me. He told me you didn't care. He said you called me unstable. I feel sick. Please forgive me. I stared at the message until my jaw ached. She asked to meet, to apologize properly. I agreed on one condition. 5 minutes, public, no tears. She lasted 30 seconds. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, eyes already wet. I thought he was different. He was manipulating both of us. I nodded. Yeah, her voice wobbled. Can you forgive me? I can't stand being the villain in your life. That sentence did something to me. Not anger, clarity. You're not the villain, I said. You're just not my person. She blinked. That's not forgiveness? No, I replied, because forgiveness doesn't make what you did okay. Her face tightened. So I'm just permanently stained? I leaned forward. Paige, you chose him. You posted it. You knew what it would do. She started to protest, then stopped, like the memory hit her. I'm sorry he lied to you, I said, but I'm not going to pretend your choices didn't cut. She whispered, I hate myself. That's your work, I said gently. Not mine. Her eyes flashed. You're being heartless. I stood up. No, I'm being done. As I walked away, she called my name like I'd left my wallet on the table. I didn't turn around. I'd left something else behind. My old habit of paying for other people's guilt. Story 17. Viv was the kind of girlfriend who treated intuition like a superpower. If I questioned anything, she'd say, stop acting like you're always right. When I warned her about her new business partner who kept pushing her to sign things quickly, she laughed. You and your paranoia. Then she signed. And the partner disappeared with her money. She showed up at my door at midnight, mascara streaked, clutching a tote bag like she was fleeing a fire. You were right all along, she said, breathless. I need your help. I need you. I didn't invite her in. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. Are you safe? I asked. She nodded, then immediately said, "Forgive me, please. I treated you like trash." My stomach nodded. Not because I wanted to punish her, because I could feel her trying to climb back into my life like it was a lifeboat. "I can help you find a lawyer," I said. "I can help you report it. But I'm not forgiving you tonight." Her eyes went wide. "What? Why would you say it like that?" "Because you're panicking," I replied. "And you're confusing panic with accountability." She stepped closer. "No, I mean it. I was wrong. You were right. Doesn't that matter to you?" I exhaled. "Viv, you didn't just ignore my warning. You mocked me. You told my friends I was controlling because I cared." Her face crumpled. I was embarrassed. "I didn't want to look stupid, and now you're embarrassed again," I said, calm. "So you're here trying to borrow my forgiveness so you don't have to sit in it alone." She flinched like I'd named something shameful. She whispered, "So you hate me?" "I don't," I said. "But I don't trust you either." Her tears turned hot, angry. "You're enjoying this?" I shook my head. "I'm surviving it." I handed her a card with a legal aid number I'd looked up while she cried on my porch. "Call them in the morning," I said. "You're going to be okay." She stared at the card, then at me, like she couldn't believe I could be kind without letting her in. That's the moment she finally understood. My compassion wasn't the same thing as forgiveness. Story 18. I dated Harper during that phase where every weekend was a party and every Monday was regret. I didn't drink much, and she loved to mock that. "You're right, Mr. Responsible. You'll die of boredom." The breakup was brutal. She didn't just leave. She made sure everyone knew she was escaping me. Then I ran into her at a hospital fundraiser. I was there for my aunt. She was there in a fancy dress, laughing too loud. When she saw me, her smile glitched. She followed me to the hallway and blurted, "You were right all along." I looked at her. "About what?" Her eyes darted around. "About everything. Drinking. Parties. The people I chose." Her voice dropped. "I got a DUI. I crashed my car. No one got hurt, but I could have killed someone." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Jesus!" She grabbed my arm. "I'm trying to change. Please forgive me. I need to feel like I'm not a terrible person." I gently removed her hand. "Harper, you almost killed someone. This isn't about me." "It is," she insisted, desperate. "I was so mean to you. I called you boring. You were right to worry." I stared at her, and suddenly I could see it. She wanted forgiveness the way she wanted a cocktail. Something to take the edge off. "I'm glad you're trying," I said, "but I'm not giving you a clean slate." Her face tightened. "So you want me to suffer?" "No," I replied. "I want you to take responsibility without making it my job to relieve your guilt." Her eyes filled. "I've been going to meetings." "Keep going," I said. "Do the work. And leave me out of it." She took a shaky breath. "I thought you'd be happy." I looked at the fundraiser posters, the smiling faces. "I'm not happy about being right," I said. "I'm happy I'm not in your passenger seat." That hit her harder than anything else. She nodded, like she'd finally understood what she'd been gambling. Then she walked back into the ballroom alone. Story 19. Elena had a talent for rewriting history in real time. If she forgot my birthday, it was because I didn't remind her. If she flirted, it was because I was neglectful. I learned to doubt my own memory. When I finally left, she told everyone I was abusive because I didn't support her emotions. Mutual friends stopped talking to me overnight. A year later, she emailed me an apology titled, "You were right all along." She wrote about therapy, about taking accountability, about how her new boyfriend left after she tried the same manipulation. She ended with, "Please forgive me. I want to make things right." I didn't answer. 2 days later, she showed up at my sister's workplace. My sister called me, furious. "Your ex is here crying in the lobby asking for you." My hands went cold. I drove over. Elena stood by the reception desk like a child waiting to be picked up. When she saw me, she rushed forward. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "You were right about me. I was toxic. I hate who I was. Forgive me." People stared. Of course they did. She always needed an audience. I kept my voice steady. "Leave." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Leave," I repeated. "Don't come to my family. Don't come to my job. Don't show up where I exist." She shook her head frantically. "I just needed you to hear it. I needed to fix what I broke." "You can't fix it," I said. "You can only stop breaking things." Her face contorted. "So you want me to live with this forever?" "Yes," I said simply. "Because I had to." Silence. The receptionist looked like she wanted to disappear. Elena's tears stopped like someone turned off a faucet. Her voice went flat. "You really are cruel." I nodded once. "No, I'm finally safe." She left without another word, and my sister exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. On the ride home, I realized something. Refusing forgiveness wasn't revenge. It was self-defense. Story 20. I dated Brianna in my early 20s. Back when I thought love meant second chances. She cheated, apologized, cheated again, apologized again. Each time she'd say, "You're right, I messed up, but you're so strong. You'll forgive me." The last time I didn't forgive her. I just left. 2 years later, she found me on LinkedIn of all places. Her message started, "You were right all along." She wrote about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, about meds, about therapy, about regret. She ended with, "I'm not asking to get back together. I just need you to forgive me so I can move on." I sat with that for a long time. Mental health explains behavior. It doesn't erase the bruises it leaves. I replied, "I'm glad you're getting help. I wish you well." She responded instantly, "So you forgive me? Please say the words." We met for coffee because part of me still wanted closure. She looked healthier, calmer. She smiled like she expected applause. "I've changed," she said. "I'm stable now. I can finally admit you were right about everything." I nodded. "Good." She leaned forward. "So? Forgive me." I took a breath. "I believe you've changed. I still don't forgive you." Her smile froze. "But why? That's the whole point of me doing better." "No," I said gently. "The point of you doing better is your life, not my approval." Her eyes flashed. "So you're holding my past over me." "I'm acknowledging it," I corrected. "I lost years of peace. I lost trust in my own judgment. I'm not giving you a magic word that makes that vanish." She stared at me, furious and wounded at the same time. "You're not fair." I shrugged slightly. "Life wasn't fair to me either when I kept forgiving you." She pushed her chair back, shaking. For a second, she looked like she might lash out. Then she swallowed it. "Progress, maybe." "Okay," she whispered. "I guess I have to live with it." I nodded. "Yeah, you do." And for the first time, she left without trying to pull me with her. Story 21. Kara loved the phrase, energy check. If I questioned a new guy friend, she'd say, "Your energy is insecure." When she started disappearing for late coffee with her boss's cousin, I told her, "This is how affairs start." She laughed and kissed my forehead like I was a child. "You're so dramatic. You always think you're right." She left me a week later, claiming she needed freedom. 9 months after that, she requested to follow me on Instagram from a new account. Her bio said healing era. I ignored it. Then a DM arrived. "You were right all along." "I'm sorry." I didn't reply. She showed up anyway, at the dog park I went to every morning. She didn't have a dog. She stood there with her hands in her pockets like she'd been planted. "I didn't know where else to find you," she said, like that was romantic. My stomach dropped. "Kara, why are you here?" Her eyes went glossy. "Because you were right. He was engaged. I found out after I moved in with him." She swallowed. "I feel stupid. I feel used. I treated you like you were the problem." My dog tugged the leash, impatient. I wished I could tug my own life forward that easily. She stepped closer. "Please forgive me. I can't stop replaying the way I laughed at you." I looked at her and realized she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was asking for a rewrite, one where she didn't have to be the kind of person who laughs at love. "I'm sorry that happened to you," I said. "Truly." Her face brightened. "So you forgive me?" "No," I answered. "And you need to stop showing up in my routines." Her smile cracked. "What?" "I'm literally admitting you were right. Being right didn't protect me," I said. "And you stalking my dog park doesn't prove you've changed." Her eyes flashed. "Stalking? I just wanted closure." "Closure isn't something you take," I replied. "It's something you build." She started crying, and a woman nearby glanced over, judgment already forming. Kara lowered her voice. "You're embarrassing me." I almost laughed. "You embarrassed me for months." She froze like she'd forgotten I had a memory. I turned, walked away, and didn't speed up when she called my name. My dog trotted beside me like he knew exactly what we were leaving behind. Story 22. Alyssa broke up with me because I wouldn't co-sign her car. She said it like a joke at first. "If you loved me, you'd help me." Then got cold when I didn't bend. "You're right all along," she mocked one night. "You're always the responsible one. You'll end up alone." I ended up alone. And honestly, it was peaceful. A year later, she messaged me from a number I didn't recognize. "You were right all along." He made me co-sign and then stopped paying. "My credit is destroyed." "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. She called, crying. "Please. I just need you to forgive me. I can't handle being the bad guy." Something in me snapped, not loudly, cleanly. "I'm not your therapist," I said. "I'm not asking you to fix it," she cried. "Just forgive me. Say it so I can breathe." "Funny," I replied. "You told me I'd end up alone. Now you're asking me to give you air." She went silent, then whispered, "That's cruel. It's honest," I said. "You didn't want forgiveness when you thought you were winning. You want it now because you're losing." She tried to argue, but her voice kept breaking. I didn't know he'd do this. I thought you were just being cheap. I laughed once, bitter. You called it cheap. I called it caution. One of us paid for being wrong. She breathed hard through the phone. So what am I supposed to do? Talk to a credit counselor. Talk to legal aid, I said. And stop asking the people you hurt to carry your shame, she sobbed. So you really won't forgive me? I won't, I said. But I also won't hate you. I'm done spending emotion on you. When I hung up, my hands were shaking, but it felt like detox. Like my body was finally ejecting something poisonous I'd swallowed for too long. Story 23. Zoe and I were long distance. I drove 4 hours every other weekend. She promised she'd move soon. Then I found out soon meant she was waiting to see if her coworker would commit. When I confronted her, she said, "You're right, okay? He flirts. But you're acting crazy." I ended it. Quietly. No posts, no drama. 6 months later, Zoe sent a voice note. Her voice was small. "You were right all along. He never wanted me. He just liked the attention. I miss you. I'm sorry." I didn't reply. Another voice note arrived the next day, harsher. "I don't get why you're ignoring me. I said you were right." That second note told me everything. The apology was still a demand with a softer font. I finally texted back, "I'm glad you see it now. I'm not interested in talking." She called immediately. I didn't answer. She emailed. Then she messaged my sister on Facebook. I replied once more. "Stop." She didn't. So I agreed to a short phone call. One chance for her to end it like an adult. The moment she heard my voice, she started crying. I hate myself. I was stupid. You were right. Please, please forgive me. I let her cry for a few seconds, then said, "Zoe, you don't want forgiveness. You want access." "What?" She snapped through tears. "No, I don't. You do," I said. "Because if you respected me, you wouldn't be contacting my family." Silence. She whispered, "I just needed you to hear me." "I heard you," I replied. "And my answer is no." Her voice turned sharp. "So you're punishing me forever." "I'm protecting myself," I said. "You had months to be kind. You chose not to." She inhaled like she wanted to scream, then hung up. My sister texted me, "Proud of you." That felt better than any apology Zoe could have offered. Story 24. Bree was the sweetest person in public and the meanest in private. She'd tell me I was too sensitive, then post captions about soft men. When I told her her friend group hated me and was sabotaging our relationship, she laughed. "You think you're right about everything. Maybe you just can't handle strong women." Then she cheated with one of the friends who hated me. She told me I forced her into it by being insecure. I walked away with my dignity in a backpack. A year later, Bree showed up at my mom's church after a Sunday service. I hadn't seen her in forever, and suddenly she was standing there in the parking lot, crying like she'd practiced. "You were right all along," she sobbed. "They set me up. They used me. I lost my job because of them. I'm so sorry." My mom was 5 steps behind me. I felt my pulse spike. Of course she picked a place where I couldn't react without looking like the bad guy. Bree clasped her hands. "Please forgive me. I've been praying for a chance to say it." I kept my voice steady. "This isn't the place." "It is," she insisted. "Because you're a good man. You'll do the right thing." Manipulation dressed up in compliments. Same perfume, new bottle. I looked at her and said clearly, "I don't forgive you." Her face went blank. But I admitted you were right." "I don't care about being right," I said. "I care about being safe. And you're still trying to corner me where I can't say no." My mom stopped beside me, silent but watching. Bree's tears turned into anger. "Wow, you're hateful." I nodded once. "Call it whatever you need to call it." I took my mom's arm and walked to the car. Bree screamed my name, but the parking lot swallowed it. My mom didn't ask questions until we were driving. Then she said softly, "Good." That one word healed more than Bree's entire speech ever could.